The sound of a human spine meeting the edge of a steel ring apron is a sound that stays with you. It's a sickening, hollow thud that cuts through the cheers, through the music, and right into the pit of your stomach. Tonight on Monday Night Raw, that sound didn't just signal the end of a match, it signaled the end of an era. Look at the canvas. That isn't just sweat, that is the physical cost of a generational shift. Rey Mysterio, a man who has survived giants for 3 decades, is motionless. Penta El Zero Miedo, a man who knows no fear, is staring at his own broken hands in disbelief. And standing over them are 2 predators who don't just want your respect, they want your soul. By the time this video ends, you're going to understand that what happened tonight wasn't just a wrestling match, it was a public execution of the Lucha Libre spirit. Before we dive into the heart of this carnage, I want to take a moment to talk to you, the SLAMZONE family. You see the passion I pour into every one of these breakdowns, the late nights spent analyzing every frame because I love this business just as much as you do. This channel is my life, but more importantly, it's our community. We've grown together, we've cheered together, and sometimes on nights like tonight, we hurt together. If you find value in these stories, if you feel the energy of the ring through my voice, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Comment down below and let me know how you're feeling after seeing this. Share this video with a friend who needs to see the chaos, and ring that notification bell. It truly helps me keep this dream alive, and it keeps us connected in a world that can feel as brutal as the one inside that squared circle. Thank you for being part of the family. The atmosphere in the arena tonight was different from the start. You could feel the energy humming in the air, a static charge that made the hair on your arms stand up. When Rey Mysterio's music hit, the roof nearly came off the building. There's something about that mask, something about that 175-pound frame that carries the hopes of every underdog who ever lived. And then Penta, the Cero Miedo sign held high, a symbol of defiance against the very concept of pain. They looked like legends, they looked like gods. But then the mood shifted. The lights didn't just dim, they felt like they were being swallowed. Braun Breaker walked out first, and he didn't look like a wrestler. He looked like a guided missile with a pulse. There's a primal, terrifying speed to everything he does. And then the ground began to shake. Bronson Reed, a mountain of a man who moves with the grace of a tidal wave and the impact of a falling skyscraper. As these 4 men stood in that ring, the contrast was jarring. It was art versus annihilation. It was tradition versus the terrifying new era of brutality. The bell rang, and for a split second there was a heavy, suffocating silence. Penta stepped forward, squaring up with Breaker. He did the gesture, Cero Miedo, right in Braun's face. The crowd erupted, a sea of Penta chants filling the rafters. But Braun didn't play along. He didn't wait. He exploded. In a blur of orange and black, Breaker hit a clothesline so stiff it looked like it nearly took Penta's head off his shoulders. The sound was like a gunshot. This is where legends are made, but in that moment it felt like where they come to be dismantled. Rey tagged in early, trying to use that legendary speed to neutralize the power advantage. He was a blur of motion, hitting the ropes, diving, spinning. A masterclass in physics. He caught Bronson Reed with a drop kick to the knee that sent the big man staggering. The crowd was on its feet. You could hear the 619 chants starting to build. Rey hit a springboard crossbody, but as he landed, you saw the look on Bronson Reed's face. It wasn't pain, it was annoyance. Reed didn't just stand up. He stood up while Rey was still draped over him, lifting the Hall of Famer like he was a bag of groceries. Reed didn't slam him, he just threw him. Rey flew halfway across the ring, hitting the turnbuckle with a thud that made the front row jump back. The pacing of this was relentless. Every time the luchadors gained an inch, the monsters took a mile. There was a moment about 5 minutes in where Penta managed to catch Breaker in a sling blade, followed by a backstabber. The near fall was so close, the referee's hand was a millimeter from the mat for the 3 count. The arena was shaking, but Breaker didn't just kick out. He powered out with such force that Penta was launched into the air. Breaker rolled to his feet, barking like a man possessed. He grabbed Penta by the throat, and the raw strength on display was terrifying. He didn't use a technical move, he just pushed him. He pushed Penta through the ropes and followed him out like a predator chasing a wounded animal. On the outside, Bronson Reed was waiting for Rey. He caught Rey mid-air on a suicide dive attempt and simply ran him into the steel post. Crunch. That's the only way to describe it. The steel groaned and Rey collapsed like a suit of armor with no one inside. The storytelling in the ring was leaning into the heartbreaking reality of age and size versus youth and raw, unbridled malice. You could see the desperation in Rey's eyes as he crawled toward the corner. He's been here before, he's beaten the big shows, the Kanes, the Undertakers, but Breaker and Reed aren't the monsters of the past. They are faster, they are hungrier, and they have absolutely no reverence for the history of the mask. Penta tried to save his partner, diving off the top rope with a double stomp to Breaker's chest on the floor, but Braun barely flinched. He stood up, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and smiled. It was the smile of a man who enjoys the breakage of bone. He grabbed a chair, not to use it, but to toss it aside, as if to say, I don't need weapons to destroy you. He rolled Penta back into the ring and began a systematic dismantling. shoulder blocks in the corner that sounded like a sledgehammer hitting a brick wall. Each impact took the air out of Penta's lungs. You could see the Cero Mio warrior starting to fade. His movements were slower, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. The crowd was trying to pull them back into it. Lucha, 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 but the chant was becoming desperate. It wasn't a cheer anymore, it was a plea. Ray managed to get back to the apron, his mask torn at the side, blood trickling down his temple. He reached out his hand. He wanted in. He wanted to protect his friend. Penta lunged, his fingertips inches from Ray's, and then Bronson Reed happened. Reed pulled Ray off the apron, and in one fluid motion delivered a powerbomb onto the floor. There are no mats out there that can soften 330 pounds of force. Ray's head snapped back, and the arena went silent. The referee was checking on him, but Reed just shoved the official aside. This wasn't about the rules anymore. This was about destruction. In the ring, Breaker had Penta in the Steiner recliner. The tension on Penta's back, the way his mask was being pulled, the sheer agony on his face, it was hard to watch. You could see the life being squeezed out of the match. What a moment this was turning into, but for all the wrong reasons. We came for a classic, and we were witnessing a massacre. Breaker finally let go, not because Penta escaped, but because he was bored. He dragged Penta to the center of the ring and looked at Reed. They shared a look, a silent agreement of pure evil. Hit that like button, subscribe to SLAMZONE, and join the family for more intense wrestling breakdowns every week. Your support means the world to me, and it's what allows us to keep exploring these incredible, sometimes heartbreaking stories of the ring. As the match moved into its final, most brutal stage, the air in the building felt heavy, like a storm was about to break. Rey Mysterio was trying to pull himself up using the guardrail. His legs were shaking, his vision clearly blurred, but that heart, that legendary stubborn heart, wouldn't let him stay down. He rolled into the ring, a ghost of the man who started the match. Bronson Reed didn't even bother to stop him. He wanted Ray to see what was coming next. Breaker grabbed Penta and set him up for the spear, but he didn't run right away. He waited. He barked. He let the dread build. When he finally hit it, it wasn't just a move, it was an explosion. Penta was folded in half. But they didn't pin him. Instead, Reed climbed to the top rope. The tsunami, we've seen it end careers. But Reed didn't just jump. He waited for Breaker to lift Ray up. Breaker held a semi-conscious Rey Mysterio in a gorilla press, and Reed leaped. The impact was cataclysmic. Reed's weight crushed Ray into the mat, while Breaker added the downward momentum. The ring boards actually splintered. You could hear the wood crack under the pressure. The referee didn't even count. He just called for the bell. He called for the doctors. But the carnage wasn't over. This is where the twist comes in, the moment that no one, and I mean no one, saw coming. As the medical staff rushed down the ramp, the lights in the arena didn't just go out. They turned a deep bruised purple. A theme song hit that we haven't heard in years. A silhouette appeared at the top of the stage. The crowd, which had been silent in shock, let out a collective gasp that turned into a roar. It was a figure that represented the bridge between the lucha world and the land of giants. While everyone was looking at the stage, Breaker and Reed didn't stop. They didn't care about the interference. They grabbed the stretcher that the medics had brought for Ree. They didn't put Ree on it, they broke it. Breaker snapped the metal frame over his knee like it was a toothpick. It was a message: there is no help coming, there is no recovery. They dragged Ree and Penta to the announce table. They cleared the monitors, tossing them into the crowd with reckless abandon. This wasn't a wrestling spot, it was a demolition. They placed both luchadores on the table. The figure on the stage began to walk down the ramp, slowly, methodically. It was a legend, someone we thought would come to the rescue. But as the light hit his face, we realized the truth. He wasn't there to save them. He was there to lead the destruction. The new era isn't just about young blood, it's about the betrayal of the old guard. This legend, a man who had stood side by side with Ray for years, stood over the wreckage. He looked down at Ray, then looked at Breaker and Reed. He didn't say a word, he just nodded. In that moment, Bronson Reed climbed back into the ring, ran and dived over the top rope, landing a senton onto the announce table with Ray and Penta still on it. The table didn't just break, it vanished under the weight. A heap of broken wood, twisted metal, and three of the most decorated athletes in the world lay in a pile of ruin. The sound of the crash echoed through the arena, followed by a silence so profound you could hear the sobbing of a child in the front row. Breaker, Reed, and the mysterious legend stood together amidst the wreckage. They didn't celebrate, they didn't raise their hands, they just looked at the camera with eyes that held no remorse, no empathy, and no limits. The message was sent. The lucha culture, the high-flying artistry, the Cero Miedo spirit, it was all buried under 300 pounds of meat and the weight of a shocking betrayal. Ladies and gentlemen, we are entering a dark time in WWE. A time where the rules are suggestions and the legends are targets. What we saw tonight wasn't a passing of the torch, it was the torch being used to burn the house down. You can feel the energy in the locker room shifting, you can feel the fear. This is where legends are made, and tonight we saw the birth of something truly monstrous. How do you even process something like this? How does Rey Mysterio come back from a betrayal of that magnitude and a physical beating that would have ended most men's careers? The questions are piling up and the answers are terrifying. But that's why we're here. That's why we watch. Because even in the darkness, there is a story to be told. As we wrap up this emotional breakdown, I want to thank you once again for being part of this journey with me. This wasn't an easy script to write, and I know it wasn't an easy video to watch. But your presence here, your comments, and your support are what keep the SLAMZONE family strong. Before you go, please hit that like button, subscribe to SLAMZONE, and join the family for more intense wrestling breakdowns every week. Share this video with someone who needs to see what happened tonight. Tell me in the comments, who do you think is next? Is there anyone left who can stop this path of destruction? My name is your host at SLAMZONE, and I'll be here every step of the way as this new brutal chapter of wrestling history unfolds. Take care of yourselves, look out for one another, and I will see you in the next one. The war has just begun. Good night.